and fought for the voiceless, for the people who have been attacked by anti-black racism and Islamophobia, who are completely sidelined by the Labour Party. And I succeeded in creating a definition for Islamophobia and anti-black racism, which the Labour Party has a cheek to use in their defense of their racism. It was in 2021 when the war on Gaza was going on and I was investigating Newham Labour. Now, what I saw in Newham Labour was one of the worst levels of corruption in entire London region, amongst other constituencies, when I saw the dossier where children were being followed on their way to school, whilst children in Gaza were being bombed. For me, the two issues, the issues in Newham and the issues in Palestine, I could not separate that. So I was elected as chair of the BME staff network, and the Labour candidate against me was under me, as I was chair of all BME staff, the parliamentary staff was included. So as her former chair, I say to her, sit down. Yes! When I stood up and I said to the General Secretary, David Evans, and for all my people that are in Croydon South, they know very well how corrupt this individual is. When I stood up and I said to David Evans, I stand with the Palestinians. You and your ilk trained me on anti-Semitism. I know what anti-Semitism is, and the two are not connected. Palestinian liberation and Palestinian freedom has nothing to do with charges of anti-Semitism. I knew they weren't going to change their position, but I asked them a very specific question, and I said, is my job at risk? And when he said, I'll have to get back to you on that, I knew my time was up, but I knew that I was more powerful than them. So that's when I took the decision, one of the biggest decisions of my life at that time, to be a whistleblower and stand against the machine. So a year and a half ago, the Labour files released, and it was based on the biggest data breach in British political history. And what it exposed was the connections that we already knew, but of the Israeli lobby influencing selection processes, but also having the powers that they do in the Labour Party. And in another episode, it exposed the hierarchy of racism and the corruption in Newham Labour. So as I stand here today as the Workers' Party candidate, I am telling the people that for me, the issues in Newham and the issues in Tower Hamlets and the issues in Palestine have always been connected. Now, when I was trying to speak to the people and expose and further tell the people that this is coming a year and a half ago, both the left machine and the right machine played a part in making sure my voice wouldn't come out, because all sides are threatened by the person who speaks to truth to power for the people. So for me, it has always been the people first. I do not shake hands with anybody, because if it's against the interests of the people, I will never do that. When there was people telling me to take a settlement agreement, it was people on the left telling me, Halima, take the settlement agreement. And I refused. And I stand here today as the only candidate in the entire country taking the Labour Party to court, representing myself in an employment tribunal which will continue after this election on July the 30th. Because even if I lose, I am still continuing my fight against this regime, against this racist Labour Party. Now, when Keir Starmer targeted the Bangladeshi community, did he not know or actually, fundamentally, I know that he didn't know that his whistleblower is of Bangladeshi heritage. He probably thought that Halima Khan was like Sadiq Khan, but unfortunately for him, my grandfather was the leader of the resistance fighter in Molibazar, and we single-handedly protected our communities, and we didn't take help from the British. We didn't need help from the British. We stood and we said, we will kick those who want to kill us out. So as my grandfather's granddaughter, I stand here in front of you with a message that anybody that puts a target on our backs, I am going to roar and risk everything, as my grandfather did, as he risked his life to support his community. I do not fear death, and I will continue to do so, because my people need a voice, and they are not invisible. I see every single one of you. I hear your pains when every single other candidate refuses to mention COVID, because COVID is like Israel. You cannot talk about it, but my community had the highest death toll. Bangladeshi communities had the highest death toll. People in Newham had the highest death toll in the entire country. And by and large, that means in Europe. Who is speaking for my people? I will. When nobody else will, I will. We need answers. And I do not fear being cancelled. I do not fear them telling me otherwise. I do not fear most powerful men in this country. And let me tell you a story. I was in Palestine on October the 7th, and when I saw all the Europeans fleeing, I decided to move to Al-Aqsa and be by Al-Aqsa and use my body to defend Al-Aqsa. Now, if I do not fear Israeli soldiers pointing M16s at my face, asking me whether I'm not a Muslim, do you think I fear a weasel like Keir Starmer? Now let me tell you about Keir Starmer. This man is afraid of Halima Khan, because since I stood, their party has been sending me legal letters every other day to try and bully me into silence. Every day they've been trying to bully me into silence. I'm not afraid. I am a Bengal tiger standing in front of you. When Malcolm X talks about the foxes and the wolves, I face the foxes under the left and I face the wolves under the right. But I am a Bengal tiger who does not fear anybody. I'm at the top of the chain in this game, and that's why they fear me. And when I stood next to Galloway, the biggest anti-establishment figure in politics, how much do you think they sweated? You know this stuff! In the middle of the night, Morgan McSweeney had to have a meeting to decide who stands against me, and they chose this woman, Umar Kamran. I am not afraid of her. She's a silly girl. She needs to sit down. So tell all of those candidates who are standing against me to split my vote, because I announced first. Those candidates that are saying they are for Palestine, remind them that they are standing against the witness of the Palestinian genocide. The only candidate in this seat that is here because the people of Palestine told me, do not waste your life and be a martyr here when you have a British privilege. Use that privilege, fight for your people there and fight for your people here. So I'm the only candidate who is endorsed by the Palestinians who told me to come back and stand for them.
And as a Palestinian, I'm asking you to stand.
Thank you. Thank you. So as I said, I will, when you give me the honour of having the parliamentary privilege, there is no better candidate in Stratford and Bow that will fight for people in Newham, Tower Hamlets and all the way to Palestine. From Newham to Bow, Labour has to go. Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the independence movement and parties that are new, like the Workers' Party, they need your help. They're up against a machine that's over 100 years old. That machine has been collecting data on you, your parents and your grandparents, and been putting them to work in order to win elections and take your vote for granted. Outside, when you leave here eventually, not soon, there's a board out there so that you can sign up to help before the election with canvassing, campaigning, phoning around. If anyone has heard things that they want to support here, and I believe most of you have, then please do sign up on the boards outside. In the interim, we're going to now introduce Barrister Atiur Rahman. He's well known in the community. He has a few words to say, and he's one of the founders of the THCC, the Tower Hamlets Community Coalition.
Just 1 minute, please. Before finishing this meeting, I'd like to say one message we should send from this wonderful crowd for Sir Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage. Know the British history, please. Because our forefathers fought for this British Empire. If you go in Tower Hill, you will see Tower Hill going by. There are thousands of Ullah Miauddin. They fought for British Empire. So know the history first before criticize any community. Thank you very much.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to introduce our last speaker, and it's my immense privilege to introduce a man of unwavering conviction, extraordinary eloquence, a distinguished figure in the British politics, who's devoted his career to the championing of the cause of justice and equality both at home and abroad. His passionate speeches and formidable debating skills have not only resonated within the walls of our Parliament, but have echoed across continents, inspiring those who seek to challenge the status quo. Ladies and gentlemen, you know I don't need to introduce him, but his name is George Galloway.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear Brother Akunji, fellow candidates, distinguished elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. An Englishman asked me today, where would we be if we didn't have all these immigrants? I told him, well, you'd be out of the European Football Championship, that's for starters. Some people, you mentioned them, distinguished elder, mentioned them a minute ago, Nigel Farage. He thinks there's too many black and brown people in this country. He wasn't saying that in the 94th minute when Jude Bellingham's overhead kick saved England's bacon all over again. Somebody asked me outside, why did Keir Starmer launch an attack on the Bangladeshi people in Britain? I told her maybe he thought your flag was a target. But I'll tell you what, it's the worst mistake he's ever made in attacking the Bangladeshi people in Britain. The most law-abiding, the hardest working, the most successful of all the immigrant communities in Britain. Someone said they had built £1 billion business. They built a 4.5 billion per year industry in Britain. And if it wasn't for the fact that hundreds of them, thousands of them, are at work right now and will be at work until 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning every night, this hall, which is already packed, wouldn't have been big enough to hold the angry Bangladeshi people in this East End of London. Anna had some words to say about me, Ajmal tells me. I haven't yet seen Anna's communication. Rushana, maybe. But I have history here. Exactly 20 years ago, and I see some of my friends from then in the audience this evening. I was selected to be the respect candidate in Bethnal Green and Bow against another Labour traitor, Una King, who had voted to massacre what turned out to be 1 million people in Iraq. She complained, "Why are you standing against a black woman?" I said, "You voted to murder millions of people blacker than you, and you did it on the orders of Tony Blair. You did it because your career mattered more to you than the blood of the Iraqi women, the blood of the Afghani women, the blood of all the women that has been shed in this last 20 years.
And children.
And children and men. Don't forget the men scrambling in the rubble in Gaza, trying to dig their own children dead out from underneath the debris. I stood here 20 years ago and I defeated Labour in one of the most historic election results of the last 50 years. And I did it with you. Miss Anna is maybe too young to know that on the back of that election result, we elected more than a dozen councillors here in Tower Hamlets. We put through a referendum so that the Tower Hamlets people could directly elect their own mayor. That was us that did that, Anna. The last time I was in here was with His Worship the Mayor, Lutfur Rahman. When Labour were trying to destroy him, I came here to stand by his side. We changed politics in Tower Hamlets. I gave an undertaking before I was elected in Bethnal Green and Bow that I would stand only once and I would make way for Britain's first Bengali MP. And I kept that promise. Unfortunately, it was the wrong Bengali MP. And we're still paying the price for it. Una King voted to slaughter the children of Iraq. Rushanara Ali refused to vote to stop the slaughter of the Palestinian children in Gaza. That is the truth. She refused. And she said nothing about the attack on her own people. I'm coming back to Gaza in a minute. What kind of Bangladeshi MP will not condemn her own leaders' gratuitous attack on her own people? What kind of Bengali MP is that? Somebody asked me, why did Starmer do this? I'll tell you why he did it. It's a very murky, not so secret. He did it because he was determined to chase Nigel Farage down the drain